Hi again, everyone. Really sorry about that slight technical difficulty. I hope the sound's better now and you can hear me okay. I'm Heather Blakey. I work for Unite, supporting our Unite community branches, our unwaged branches, who are really behind our campaign on universal credit, which is the reason we're here tonight. We've got a really good panel lined up for you tonight. We're going to introduce you to them very shortly, but first I just want to tell you a little bit about the Universal Discredit Show, the reason that we're here tonight. The Universal Discredit Show is an online exhibition, and it's a collaboration between Wakefield's Red Shed players and Unite Community Leeds and Wakefield branch. And it's inspired by Unite Community's Universal Discredit campaign. Unite Community's been campaigning on universal credit, really against universal credit, and very importantly for a decent social security system for very many years. At the moment, we're really focused on the campaign to make permanent the £20 increase to universal credit that was brought in at the start of the pandemic, not just to make it permanent, but also to extend it to all claimants. A lot of people have been left behind, have not even had that £20, including many disabled claimants. So that's a very important immediate goal for the campaign. It's also really important to us that claimants are at the heart of that campaign. Unite Community is really focused on supporting the voices of claimants to demand something better, because this isn't just about the money. It's not just about £20, although God knows it is really important to have enough to live on, but it's also about dignity. And this system is not just a system that puts people into poverty, but really deliberately means that people are living in fear and humiliation as a deliberate intent of the system. And so for our campaign, and what we're campaigning for is really about a social security system that lets people live with pride and with dignity. The system is designed as if only economics matters, and we believe really strongly, as I'm sure you do too, that so much more than that is important. Creativity is important, humanity is important, solidarity is important, which is why I am really proud that the Universal Discredit Show is part of our campaign. As I said, it's an online exhibition. There's short film there, poetry, music, art. You're going to see some of those and hear some of those tonight. There's a lot more in the exhibition that you won't see or hear tonight. So the link, I think, should be in the chat. So please do, after tonight's event, do go and have a look at everything else that we have there, because this campaign is about so much more than the money we need to live on. It is about how we want to live and who we want to be. We are so much more than they say we are, and I think this show, as part of this campaign, really brings that home to us. And together we can make a difference. Together we can win things. This government did not want to extend the £20. It was due to end in April this year. And because so many of us, not Unite Community included, but so many other activists and claimants and campaigning organisations stood together and said that is inhuman, that is cruel, we forced the government into a U-turn. We've seen another win this week where Uber drivers have won their rights, against the will of their employer, to have their work rights respected. And now this government is coming for our right to protest. And it's very clear why they're doing that, because if we stand together, we can win. And that's what tonight is about. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for being here to find out more about the show, about the campaign. I really hope you enjoy what you're going to see and hear this evening. Before we go to our first film, just want to introduce the panel, or invite the panel to introduce themselves. So Kerry, do you want to go first? Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Kerry Wilkes, a member of Unite Community, Tees and Durham branch, and I actually claim universal credit.
Thanks, Kerry. You're gonna hear not only from Kerry later, but hear her words in one of our films. Pete.
Me, Pete. Yes. I'm Pete Hurst from the Red Shed Players, and we worked on Sick, and we're working with Jerry and Heather and Unite to put some bits together from what people have actually said, including Kerry, of course, and other people. Thanks.
Thanks, Pete. And Vince, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm Vince Laws. I'm a poet and an artist and a disability rights campaigner, mainly because I am disabled. I live on disability benefits on the ESA in the whatever group it is. I can't even be bothered to think about that. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about the DWP and the deaths that are being caused by the policies of the DWP, which are forcing people into poverty, forcing people into distress, despair. And I've actually made an ongoing series of shrouds, which are kind of a memorial and a protest. So I'll be discussing those and showing some of those. Thank you.
Thanks, Vince. And Jill, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Jill Crocher here in Leeds. I'm a disabled person, a curator, an activist. And I'll be talking about how we sort of bring disability arts and activism together a bit later.
Thanks, Jill. And our other Pete.
Hi, I'm Pete Rosser. I'm a musician in Wakefield. I'm going to sing a couple of songs later for light relief, perhaps.
Thanks, Pete. And very much last but not least, Jerry.
Hi, thanks, Heather. I'm Jerry Lavery. I'm the branch secretary of Leeds and Wakefield United Community. I'm here to represent the branch and tell you something about our campaign and what we did during that. And I've got a video preceded by a few remarks. So thanks for coming anyway. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Jerry. So we're gonna watch our first film very shortly. If you've got comments and questions about what you see, what you're seeing, or anything you'd like to put to the panel, please put them in the chat, and we'll try and come to them during the evening. So we'll move straight to our first film now, which is called An Injury to All, and it's a very powerful short film made by the Red Shed Players, and I hope you enjoy it.
We're reading statements made by staff who deal with universal credit claimants when they were interviewed by researchers. Universal credit was meant to simplify the system. It was said that a simpler system would reduce the scope for fraud, error, and overpayments.
So that the right payment would be paid to the right person at the right time.
But the impact, it's been horrendous.
People are telling us that they want to kill themselves, that they're going to hand the children over to social services because they can't afford to feed them.
What can you say to someone who says that to you?
There's more demand now and the system can't cope, so folk are kept waiting longer. There's more awkward phone calls. People are more annoyed and angry when they do finally get through.
They reckon about 1 million people have had to apply for universal credit because of the pandemic, and that's going to get worse.
You can feel the pressure and the stress that people are under.
It's upsetting because you want to try and help, and you know what they're saying is true.
What can I do? I don't want them to be angry with me. I wouldn't choose to put them through it.
I understand that when they get to me, I'm the first actual flesh and blood person that they've seen. It really is awful. I can't remember the last day that I looked forward to going to work.
How do you think it makes you feel when you're working in a system like this? I mean, I can't change the system, and I try to be as sympathetic as possible, but, well, I'm powerless.
It's true. It's true. But getting shouted at for something you've got no control over, it can get really wearing.
That additional £20 really makes a big difference to people. It's not much, and it's not permanent either. I mean, making that permanent would be a good first step to give people a bit of relief too.
I voted for Labour because Corbyn said that the system was rotten. He was right. But I'm not sure what Labour policy is now. You'd hope that anyone interested in people would see how bad this is. What are we doing?
Universal credit causes financial insecurities because of the delays in the payments. But there's a 5-week delay inherent in the whole system. I mean, some people just have difficulty managing the monthly budgets.
And then there are deductions for hardship payments and historical overpayments of tax credits.
Everyone's scared to death. It's just horrific. It's setting people up to fail.
I would like the DWP to listen more. It seems that unless the media get hold of something and really run with it, nothing ever gets done.
It's absolutely life-changing for some people. And there's a terror around that.
We have people who ring us up and say, I'm going to kill myself, you know?
We get suicide threats a lot. People who were unable to help.
I really do worry for the future of our clients.
It's probably costing more money than it's saving because of the impact it's having on society.
Health just spirals out of control because of these wider determinants of health.
People are being forced to do things that make their health worse. And that costs the NHS more. And then they reach crisis point, when actually they weren't in a too bad a position when they started.
How much pressure is there on the NHS? If, let's say, a sanction saves a DWP £1,000, how much is that costing the NHS? Is it costing them £10,000 because you have a hospital admission because of it? It's very short-sighted.
Universal credit is definitely not a benefit to be lived on. It's not really a livable income.
If you can't feed yourself, you're not going to be wanting to do a job search. And if you haven't got the bus fare, how are you going to get to a job anyway?
It does feel like they're punishing people for being poor.
It's as if you are on benefits, you're not entitled to any quality of life.
It seems to be government policy at the moment punishing people for being poor.
It's not a safety net anymore. It's almost like it's been being used as a stick to beat people with.
People spent so much of their time trying to survive that there's nothing left to look for work. It's just completely counterproductive. Financially persecuting people is not going to achieve your aim of getting them back into employment.
Children are losing out because of child poverty and because the parents are too preoccupied with putting bread on the table. And there's yet another generation of children brought up in an atmosphere of fear, anxiety. Kids can't feel secure if the parents don't.
The 2-child limit has a substantial impact on child poverty.
There is an exemption to the 2-child rule if the second child is a result of rape. But how bad is that? How intrusive is that to have a woman disclose rape in order to feed her children?
You're banging your head against a brick wall to get to the bottom of it.
There's no compassion, there's no mercy, nothing.
Hi again, everybody. I hope you, well, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I'm sure you agree that's a really powerful film from the Red Shed Players. And I think, it's really important to hear that perspective, though, the voices of the people forced to implement the system. And this is probably a good opportunity to thank PCS, the union for the DWP workers, for all they do for the campaign as well, because they fight very hard against this system as well. I want to hand over to Kerry now, a Unite community member who is a Universal Credit claimant, to talk a little bit about your perspective, Kerry, your experiences and why you're involved in the campaign.
Oh, I'm Kerry. I've been on Universal Credit since 2019 September. The reason I get to switch over to Universal Credit is I deferred my final year at uni and I could claim carers allowance for my son. When I applied, I did it online, and I'm not exactly, I am a bit of a, I'm not that bad on computers, and I found it a struggle to apply for it online. And then technically within 2 hours, I could apply for this £1,500 advance, and that was in my bank within an hour. I attended my appointment, the initial appointment with your work coach. And I think because I've been part of Unite and Universal Credit, I actually knew more than her. And when I was asking questions, all I got told is, you have to wait for your statement. You'll have to wait for your statement. Well, my statement wasn't going to be for 3.5 weeks. I was given all this money and I wasn't told that I had to pay my rent. And she was very vague. She just didn't really know her stuff. And I think that that's quite daunting for someone going and claiming this new benefit that no one, it's like a new thing, especially from where I'm from, it had only just been rolled out. She was like really, really vague. And then because I get carers allowance, which is £67 a week, I get some of my universal credit took off me. So technically I only get £36.50 of my carers allowance. I can't get a job because I'm a carer. So because I'm a carer for a week, I get £36, which is obviously not very good. I think the advance payment that I got, and I took the full advance, naive me, and I wish I'd never took it now. They didn't tell you to begin with that I had to pay £127 a month back on that. And they used to obviously take that off of me every month. When I went into the job centre initially to do my initial, sit on that yellow chair. Well, you have to sit on that yellow, you treat as though you're a robot with your national insurance number on your forehead. And you're treated like your national insurance number, you're a customer with a number. I think that when I went to the thing, she said, you get this PIN number in this file thing for your universal credit. You must not lose this PIN. You must not lose this PIN. She was telling me this over and over and over again, as though it was the crown jewels. To this day, I've never had to use this PIN. I think it's still in the wallet somewhere in a drawer. I've never had to use it. I use my passwords and everything to log in. Everything I asked, it was just, you have to wait for your statement. You have to wait for your statement, which is far from helpful. And I think, what was I was going to say something else. I think that, universal credit might look quite good on paper, but it's not. It's far from. I think it could be massively changed. I think you should have the option of getting paid fortnightly or whatever, because some weeks you can go 4 weeks, some weeks you can go 5 weeks, and your assessment periods and all that. I know people who work, and if they have 2 paydays in one assessment period because it's a weekend, the universal credit's massively cut for that week, which isn't right. I think the DWP staff, well, the majority of them need massively training. I think that they need to get the chip off the shoulder and show people some dignity and respect, which I know a few that do not. They treat you as though they're giving you their physical money. I don't think it should be online. Like I said earlier, I think I'm not techie savvy, but I found it difficult. So I could imagine someone who's never been online and everything like that. I think situations change. What if your Wi-Fi wasn't working? What if you had no mobile data? What would you do? Especially in the last year when no libraries have been open to go on a computer, get Wi-Fi and do whatever. I think that needs changing. And I'm part of Unite Community. I've been part of Unite Community now for nearly 3.5 years. And I think as a group of people, we can actually achieve something. And I think that we've achieved something really big with a £20 uplift. No one thought that they were going to, even extending's been a really good thing. No one thought that Rishi Sunak was going to change his mind or do whatever. And he's extended it. And I think now he's extended it, it's going to make it harder for them to remove it, because more people are claiming universal credit. But it should be for all, it should be for everybody, not just universal credit claimants or working tax credit claimants. It should be for disabled people, other benefits, legacy benefits. It should be rolled out for everybody. I think that as a group of us, Unite Community, I think in the last year we've probably achieved more being online. That's what I personally think anyway. I think we've achieved more being online than face to face. It's hard to get with. I mean, I have a lot to do with Jerry from Leeds, and I couldn't do half the stuff I've done for the campaign without being online. The film's really, really good. I've watched it a couple of times, and it's hard to hear my comments in a thick Yorkshire accent. But it's really good, and I think it does like connect with people who are working class and who are whatever, because it's the way like it's worded. It's really, really good. And and I got asked to do it through Jerry, and I met Pete Hurst online, and I just gave and with another person, I just gave my like situation and my thoughts and my whatever. And then when I watched the film, it's just been really, really good. But do I announce the film now, or do I have to do that, or does somebody else have to do it?
I think that is a good moment, Kerry, for moving on to the film. Thank you, because I think everything you've said about the film, it's so powerful, isn't it? That the Red Shed Players films are the direct voices of we've just heard from the staff who have to deal with the system, and the film we're about to watch, and I hope you'll agree with Kerry, is a really powerful film as well, with the voices of universal credit claimants talking about what it feels like from the other side of the table. So thanks very much for Kerry. We're going to definitely come back and talk a bit more about a lot of what you've said about campaigning and about the reality of this system. But yeah, let's hear the Kerry and others' words in a beautiful Yorkshire accent.
The Tories know they have to divide us to keep on top. Division is the main thing that we have to counter. Being in Unite Community and supporting claimants is my way of showing people we don't have to let them win.
I do it because I'm a gobbyget.
They've created a stigma about claiming benefits through the papers and shows on TV about benefit scroungers and things like that, even though benefit fraud is tiny compared to tax avoidance.
So the best thing we can do is pull out the truth. Tell what it's like to be on universal credit, and it's no picnic.
Makes me so angry. I see everyone branded as benefit cheats by rich people who got done cheating their own expenses.
A lot of them are from really rich families as well. I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg makes me sick, sneering at people's poverty and saying, it's balderdash, or whatever. I mean, when he's got a fortune of £100 million.
Yeah, the hypocrisy of supporting a system where you only get support for 2 kids, when he's got 8.
And Johnson, our bloody Prime Minister, doesn't know how many kids he's got.
He doesn't know where his chuffing comb is either.
They haven't got a clue about real life. They're all silver spoons, wealthy people who think we're a lot of scum because we're on universal credit. And it's the ideology, isn't it? Everything's your fault, no matter what the circumstances are.
Ian Duncan Smith said something that always sticks in my mind. He said he could survive on what claimants get each week. And yeah, I remember a specific time when he was putting in expenses during all that expenses saga. He claimed he could live on £53 a week. And then he claimed for a £39 breakfast. And that would have left him £14 to see him through the rest of the week. And you just kind of think it's a completely different world that we live in.
I think that maybe they need to live on it themselves for a week, or have their family living on it for a month, and then they'd have a bit of realisation of what it's actually like.
Well, it's not something where you can actually live on. You're surviving. Basically, you're not living a life.
I'm speaking to people who are being made redundant. They've worked 20, 30 years and not had to make a claim for benefits. They're absolutely shocked at what they get. Even with the so-called uplift, the 20 quid a week, they just think, how am I supposed to survive on this? How How can I pay my mortgage?
They go, well, is this all we get? I thought the state was supposed to be there to help us when we needed it.
With COVID, the numbers of people having to apply for universal credit is, I think, over 1 million now. So it's very difficult to get hold of anyone because everything is online, and you know how frustrating that can be.
That's why people get angry with staff. There's been 40,000 job cuts from the DWP in the last 11 years. So the DWP staff are feeling just as stressed as we are.
And a lot of it's not their fault, but a lot of them want to get their heads out of their own backsides. They think they're giving you their money, and some treat people with total disregard. A friend of mine's a scaffolder, and at the beginning of the first lockdown, his electricity had run out because he was waiting for universal credit. He didn't contact anyone, being a man and all, with pride and that. He was sanctioned because he hadn't been updating his universal credit journal online. He said to me, "Carrie, I must have been old enough to be the lass's dad. She made me feel an inch big in the middle of the job centre. I was that embarrassed and ashamed to say that I'd no money in my electricity."
You're a number. You're a customer. You're not a person anymore.
The majority of claimants of universal credit are actually in low-paid work.
Well, it makes people desperate to find any job. And a lot of companies will use the zero-hour contracts to avoid any responsibility to look after their employees.
Yeah. On 0 hours contract, they never know what hours they're going to get each week. They might have 4 hours, they might have 16. But every time it changes, it makes a difference to what they're going to get on universal credit.
So they've never got a stable life. One week they might get 100 quid, the next week they might get 20. It provides so little stability for people.
People should be screaming out loud that people need a living wage. Then they wouldn't have to depend on the welfare system.
It puts people more into poverty, and it's cruel. Horrible system that we've brought in.
You need a basic level of support to help you to get yourself in the state where you can contribute. This system, well, it breaks people. So they've got a miserable life, the kids have got a miserable life, they can't make the best of themselves, and they can't play a positive role in society. Universal credit must be scrapped.
We need to encourage DWP staff to get involved in their union. Link up so we can fight the system as one.
Unite Community specifically work with people who aren't fully employed. It costs barely now to join. It's a couple of quid a month, less than the price of a cup of coffee.
We need decent jobs for all those who want to work, a decent pension, a decent standard of living if you're not able to work. It's not a lot to ask for, is it?
So I can see from what's some of what's your comments that film's really really struck a chord with people, and obviously there's a lot of experience of this horrible system amongst everybody here tonight as well. Just a point from Red John Labour, whatever his politics are, that it's really about stigma, not just from the rich to the poor, but there's stigma from everybody, and that's something that we really need to challenge as well. And that's also what this show and this exhibition's about. So yeah, thanks for everything that all your comments and contributions as well. We're gonna go now to Pete, who's gonna sing us a song. I'm gonna let Pete introduce his song.
Little musical interlude, so nothing particular to do with anything. This is a classic wartime resistance anti-fascist song from the 1940s. Very famous all across Eastern Europe, possibly Italian to start with. This is Bella Ciao. You might know it as a really up-tempo, rousing tune, but this is a slow version as sung by Tom Waits and Mark Rebo on an album, Songs of Resistance, from 2 or 3 years ago. It's got a great Mexican song about a cockroach called Trump on it. But this is Bella Ciao. One fine morning, I woke up early. Bella ciao, bella ciao, goodbye beautiful. One fine morning, I woke up early to find a fascist at my door. Oh, Partigiano, please take me with you. Bella ciao, goodbye beautiful. Oh, Partigiano, please take me with you. I'm not afraid anymore. And if I die a Partigiano, bella ciao, goodbye beautiful. Bury me upon that mountain beneath the shadow of a flower, so the people passing, bella ciao, goodbye beautiful. So the people passing can say, oh, what a beautiful flower. This is the flower of the partisan. Bella ciao, goodbye beautiful. This is the flower of the partisan who died for freedom. This is the flower of the partisan who died for freedom.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Pete. What a great song that is. And always makes me feel very fired up to to carry on resisting. So we're going to move on to hearing a little bit more about some of the things that we do need to resist to. So Vince is going to share some of his artwork. Those of you that came to an event we held a little while ago, also with the Red Shed players, about PIP rather than Universal Credit, may have seen some of Vince's artwork. So Vince, if you want to.
Good. Hello, am I on? Can you hear me, Mother? Yes. Okay, so I was going to talk to you a bit about this project that I've been working on. It's not strictly speaking Universal Credit, but I think they all tie into one. It's all part of the same benefit system. It's all part of the wider system that we find ourselves swimming against. So yeah, I've made quite a lot of disability protest art, but in this particular case, I wanted to make something. Well, it started off when I put on a play. I put on a play called A Very Queer Nazi Faust. The alternative title was The Tragic True Life and Deserved Death of a Benefit Scrounger by Himself, John Faust. And this is the story of Faust, who's a poet living in rural Norfolk, a bit like myself, strangely enough. They say, write what you know. And he crawls to the coast because he has his benefits stopped without any explanation or reason or anything in the post, something which has happened to me twice, despite being on disability benefit, despite dealing with anxiety and depression. It's the worst possible way to treat people. Anyways, Faust, I'm getting off the story, crawls up to the coast, throws himself into the sea, but Lucifer won't let him drown because she loves the book that he's writing. Turns out that Lucifer is a shape-shifting pansexual hermaphrodite and takes Faust under their wing. I'm not sure, now that I've given her gender away, I'm not quite sure how to carry on. But anyway, alongside Lucifer, Faust finally signs a contract, and his fight with the DWP all ends beautifully. They ring him up immediately and tell him £666 has just been paid into his account. A brand new car turns up, his book gets published, he goes to Parliament, gives that Prime Minister a piece of his mind, and yeah, puts the world to rights. Visits the Pope, but we won't go there, that's another story. So part of the set for this, I wanted it to be inside John Faust's head, so that when you're looking at the stage, you see two giant eyeballs hanging down from the stage, and we're in his head, and a washing line right across the back, and hanging from that was 5 of these shrouds. And the shrouds are all made from recycled bedding. I got donations locally, community donations. I got people to sew them up for me, volunteers, so that they were approximately 6 foot by 4 foot, which is the size of a burial plot, which I kind of thought, you know, I kind of like that metaphor. Is it a metaphor? I don't know, whatever it is. And yeah, I've been doing quite a lot of spray paints and text on various banners and what have you. And so these ones I turned into very specific artworks. I wanted them to work both as a protest, which could go on the streets and, you know, get seen, cause attention, what have you. But I also wanted to get them into art galleries so that they were getting the message in front of people that perhaps needed to see it more than those of us that are all on protests anyway. So I've been, it started off, I made 5 to go on the back of this theatre set. And in the end, at the moment, I've made about 28, I think, and they are kind of a memorial to the people who have died, and they're set out a little bit like a poem. That's how I think of them. So the title of the poem would be somebody's name, for instance, Mark Wood. And then underneath that, it says something like, found fit for work by Atos against his doctor's advice, complex mental health, benefits stopped, starved to death, DWP deaths make me sick. So that's kind of the nub of the campaign that I've been running, I suppose. After the play, we put the play on in 2017, and then in 2018, I was a bit knackered after that, but 2019, I started getting these shrouds seen all around the country. So they've been in Parliament, they've been in different galleries, they've been on street protests. Peter Hurst, the Red Shed Players, they used them as a backdrop when they were doing some of their filming. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting them seen. There's a Facebook page of the same name, DWP Deaths Make Me Sick. And I've been, as I say, pushing those to try and get change, as we all are. I mean, we're all here for the same reason. We want this system to change, what have you. There seems to be this kind of thing with the DWP that if you think yourself better, then you stop being poorly, you stop being sick, you're no longer disabled. You're only disabled because you think you're disabled. If you go to work, of course, then you won't any longer be disabled. Your limbs will grow back, etc., etc. No, we all know that how ridiculous it is, but that is the system we're faced with. And lots of people are protesting. I'm not the only one, I know that. DPAC, Black Triangle Campaign, they have a long list of people who've died where the death is considered to be part of or down to the DWP or to do with the DWP. I'm just looking at my little notes to see if there was anything else I wanted to say particularly on that. Oh yeah, so they've been there. Okay, I'm hoping later, obviously we've just had this virus, so they haven't been on display much at the moment. So it's great to get some online with yourselves at Unite, and also just to stitch together community, protesters, organizations, people who are all on the same wavelength and are trying to get things to change. Hopefully later this year, there's the possibility the shrouds might be shown in Exeter, they might be going to Leicester. And at the moment, I'm applying to the Arts Council to put the play on in a touring version, which can go around the country. And if that happens, it will be with 5 disabled actors playing the 5 parts. So that it's a real statement of people speaking for themselves, nothing about us without us. Or as Oscar Wilde said, if the system cripples you, you must cripple the system. Bravo! Yes, I think that's about me. The other person I wanted to mention was Joy Dove, who runs Justice for Jodie on Facebook, and she is fighting for Jodie Whiting, who missed a work capability assessment while very ill. Her disability benefits were stopped. She took her own life. I mean, it's just tragic and appalling. So she is fighting for a second inquest. And we know that things like coroner's reports are being tucked away secretly. So well done to John Pring at Disability News Service, who's been exposing a lot of this with campaigning and freedom of information requests and what have you. And yeah, I think that'll do. That's me done, really, if that's all right for you. I just wanted to talk about the shrouds. They're up there on the website, so you can have a look at them. If anybody wants them on display anywhere around the country, get in touch with me and we'll sort something out. Other than that, great to be part of the event. Well done, the organizers, and thank you for having me along. Bravo.
Thanks very much, Vince. I mean, thanks for everything you've said. I think, you know, it really gets at what we want this Universal Discredit show to be about, you know, about different ways of reaching different people, reaching beyond the people who already know this stuff, because I think everything that we're hearing and talking about is so shocking when you hear it, and we just need to get that out more widely. And I think the other thing that, you know, that you've talked about that is that, you know, that individual humanity and tragedy of those stories, that, you know, that each of these statistics we hear is a life and sometimes a death, and actually we can get lost in those statistics. And part of these other ways of campaigning, these other ways of talking about all of this stuff is really hopefully about bringing out that, you know, that real humanness of what we're talking about. So thanks very much for that, Vince. And
thank you.
I think as well, you know, as you mentioned, the sort of some of the three-dimensional, I won't say real life because this is real life too, but when we get back to having three-dimensional events, obviously that, you know, the work that you do and some of the other artists and contributors to the exhibition, it would be really fantastic to have some in-person events. So if any of you know places you can invite us to, when it's allowed, we'll be there. So keep, you know, do get in touch with us and invite us. There's a really nice comment from Anthony. I mean, obviously a lot of the terrible, difficult experiences of Universal Credit, but I really like, Anthony, that, you know, what you said about replacing this with a system of empathy and hope. And I think that is, you know, that is something that's really, really important, isn't it? To have something that we're fighting for as well as fighting against. I'm gonna move straight on to Jill to talk about some more of the art in the exhibition, and then this is warning to the panel. It would be great to hear some of your thoughts and ideas on what we've seen so far. So over to you, Jill.
Okay, thanks. Hello, everybody. If you weren't on earlier, I'm Jill Crocher. I'm a disabled curator and I'm based in Leeds. I'm actually not going to talk about the art that's in the show. I'm going to talk a bit broader about that. And the reason is, you know, you should go and look at the art in the show if you haven't done already. So yeah, I mean, what does it mean, you know, being this disabled curator? I draw on my own experiences of being a disability activist, actually. So I organise exhibitions and other events using art and that highlight issues that affect disabled people. And hopefully you can see there's just a couple of pictures that accompany what I'm saying. I'll talk through them, whether or not you can, hopefully you can see those. Because you might not be aware, there's a really, really strong tradition of disabled artists making art as a form of activism. The disability arts movement, it absolutely developed hand in hand with the broader disabled people's movement. And, you know, there was art there that was addressing disability issues, that was supporting that political movement. And, you know, as we've heard from Vince there and seen from his work, of course, art can be a really powerful tool for change. And it's no surprise, even though I'm not going to talk about those, I'll let you see for yourself. It's no surprise really that the Universal Discredit Show, because it's about supporting a campaign for a fair benefits system that's really fit for purpose, it's not a surprise that that includes a really good proportion of disabled artists, because disabled artists are sort of living with the effects of having a system that doesn't work for everybody. Just while I'm here though, I'm just going to briefly highlight a couple of other examples of disability art and activism. So covering not just benefits, but access, representation and rights. And you might have noticed then one of the pictures is a mention of Grace and Perry and some sort of protest on a news item on the screen. So I'll just say that disabled artists actually, you know, we weren't protesting directly against Grace and Perry as such, but we were protesting about the local authority who put on an exhibition of his tapestries in a venue that wasn't accessible to everybody. And so what we did, we held a counter exhibition at the same time. We organised our own exhibition. And that way we were able to sort of grab or deflect or whatever some of the publicity that there was for Grace and Perry's exhibition to our cause, which was demanding better access, and not just to that exhibition, but to the arts and cultural events in general. And what we did with that, I mean, it did get some of that attention, and we certainly shamed the local authority up. And that did result in them making some changes at the last minute to make the access a bit better. But certainly I don't think they'll be putting on a big exhibition like that in a venue that's not accessible. They won't be doing that in a hurry. There's also on the screen, there's an artwork that's called Not Lost by an artist called Mo. And it's like a mail bag that's hanging by an invisible thread. It's partly stuffed, it's just hanging there in the air. And it's absolutely covered with receipts. And what that's representing is the way that the DWP just demands evidence of every little detail of claimants' lives. And that's sort of represented with those receipts. But then very often, I think, you know, we've all played, if you've been claiming benefits at some point dealing with the DWP, that evidence has got lost in the poster, it's got lost in the system and putting you right back at square one. So this artwork is called Not Lost. And that was part of an exhibition that was called Shoddy that took place in Leeds a few years ago, 4 years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago. Any of the people who are in West Yorkshire, you might know that the original meaning of shoddy is cloth, new cloth that's been made from reclaimed fibres. But our title of the exhibition, it was a bit of a play on words. It was saying that disabled people, our art, our work, our lives, we're not shoddy, we're not second rate. But the exhibition made the point that what is shoddy, shoddy's not a strong enough word for it at all, but you know, we were saying what is shoddy, however, is the government's treatment of disabled people with the cuts to benefits, not just benefits, to public spending across the board that disproportionately affect disabled people. And the other picture that you might have spotted is somebody dressed as a charity collecting box. And this is a provocative and quite fearless performance artist called Catherine Araniello, who died sadly a couple of years ago. But she was, you know, a brilliant performance artist. And here in this picture, she's out on the street in the guise of, for those who are old enough to remember, dressed up as one of those Spastic Society collecting boxes, if people remember those around in the 60s and 70s. And what she's doing there is she's really challenging all those ideas that disabled people's lives are miserable and that they have to be dependent on charitable handouts, and that's not the case at all. Disabled people don't want pity. Pity was the name of that performance, incidentally. Pity gets us nowhere. What we want, and what this campaign wants for everybody, is justice, respect, dignity, and rights. Thanks.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, absolutely, definitely, and that's very much what the exhibition is about. So do as Jill said, do go and have a look at everything that's there. I'd really like to bring in Jerry and Pete Hurst at this point, who've really been the driving forces behind getting the Universal Discredit Show up and running and online. So just anything that you want to add about why it's important to you, you know, what we're trying to do with this exhibition? Pete, do you want to?
If we hadn't have been in lockdown and not being able to go out, the Labour Club hosts evenings, variety shows, and we get various people. The thing that unites them is a sense of social justice and the willingness to work for nothing. And it's wrong to say, really, that I've driven it, or perhaps Jerry's driven it as well, I think. The thing that's amazing about it is you just ask somebody, you say to Jill, who I'd never met before, would you help out? Yes, of course I will. David White, who you can't see, same thing. Vince, same thing. You know, Kerry, will you talk on online for an hour about your experiences? Yes, of course I will. Jerry, can you get Heather involved? Yeah. Pete Rosser down the way, would you do a couple of songs? Oh, it's an amazing. We're constantly encouraged to feel that campaigning is both out of fashion and extremely tedious. And actually, it's really affirming. It's been such a positive experience for me to be involved, because I know nothing about any of this business. Dave Hanley's the guy who put our film together. The rest of the Red Shed players, just, yeah, of course we'll make a film about that. It's a clear injustice. There's so much solidarity about, but we don't own the media, but we can own this media. And when we can all meet up again, we can own that sense of collaboration and unity and community, which is what these people do not want. They are about small society, no community. The Tories don't do this because they're a miserable set of greedy bastards. That's why you'd never get invited to a cabaret run. You know, they have to pay neo-fascist comedians to attend their doors. So it's a fantastic thing, I think, and it's about humanity, isn't it? Jerry, follow that.
I was going to talk about this later anyway, but now that you've brought it up, I mean, I think it is worth paying tribute to Pete, particularly because he has driven this Universal Discredit Show and the showing of the film Sick, which he and his fellow players at the Red Shed Players Group produced. And what it's made me realise is the importance of culture, really, in any kind of struggle, and that it ought to become part of popular culture. And one idea that Pete suggested was that we have some kind of roadshow when we get back to so-called normal, where you go around communities and, you know, talk about the universal credit and that kind of thing, particularly given that the organic link between some communities and the Labour Party, their traditional representatives, has been broken following the last election. So I think it's a way of trying to re-establish connection, and I look forward to that, as well as what's happening tonight. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on. But Pete, it is worth thanking Pete in particular, because he has really gone out of his way to put this together and to galvanise us into some kind of action and to address a dimension of struggle that we've never done before. So I'd like to publicly thank Pete for that, and a lot else besides. Thank you.
I think thanks is due to everyone that's been involved, the artists and contributors that are here, and all the artists and contributors that are not here but whose work is part of the exhibition, and everybody, all of you that are here for the launch as well. We really appreciate you being here. We hope that you're going to keep in touch with us and be part of the campaign with us. I'm sure you're already campaigning around all of these issues already. If you'd like to link up with your local Unite community branches and join in the campaign with us, we'd absolutely love to have you involved. There's a link going in the chat for how to find your local Unite community branch if you're in our region, North East Yorkshire and the Humber. If you're not, but you want to find your local Unite community branch where you are, just get in touch with us anyway, and we'll find a way to put you in touch. This seems a good moment to move over for another song from Pete. If you're ready for us, Pete.
Well, I'm nearly ready. I just need to strap on the accordion again. So that was that song was that last song was nearly 80 years old, I think. This song's only about 50 years old, so it's really quite recent. And you'll be glad to know that it's a song from Chile. A song by Victor Jara, the great singer-songwriter who was murdered during Pinochet's coup in 1973. This is a song, and you'll be even more glad to know I'm going to sing it in Spanish for you. I know that will make you really happy. I'm not sure if the subtitles are going to give you the translation or just the Spanish for you to translate it for yourselves. But and if you're in doubt, if my Spanish sounds really rubbish, then I'm sure it's because I'm trying to sing in Latin American Spanish and not European Spanish. So there you go. So let's have no corrections. Okay, this is called El Derecho de Vivir en Paz, which means the right to live in peace. And it's actually all about, a Chilean folk song about the Vietnam War. And it talks about Ho Chi Minh. It mentions Uncle Ho at one point. But, essentially what we're talking about this evening is the right to live in peace, rather than having to struggle for every little penny that they decide to give us, depending on whether we're worthy or unworthy, deserving or undeserving. So let's hope this is, if nothing else, this is what we're aiming for. I'm trying to get my lights better, but I don't think it's going to work. There you go. Well, at least the accordion's lit nicely now. How about that? Ooh. So, and there you can sing along, not in Spanish, but there's choruses that just go la 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 la. So as long as you're muted, you can sing along. There you go. El derecho de vivir, poeta Ho Chi Minh, que golpea de Vietnam a toda la humanidad. Ningún canon borrará el surco de tu arrozal. El derecho de vivir en paz. Indochina es el lugar más allá del ancho mar, donde revientan la flor con genocidio y napalm. La luna es una explosión que funde todo el clamor, el derecho de vivir en paz. La 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 la. La 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 Tío, nuestra canción es fuego de puro amor, es palomo, palomar, olivete, oliva, es el canto universal, cadena que triunfa, el derecho de vivir en paz. La 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 la, es el canto universal.
el derecho de vivir en paz, el derecho de vivir en paz.
There you go.
Thanks very much, Pete. We're almost out of time for tonight, and there's so many conversations and issues that we've barely started talking about that, and I do hope that you're going to go away full of hope despite all the the terrible things that we're talking about and trying to change. I think that if tonight and the online exhibition is about anything, it's about the importance of hope and being inspired by something as well as against something. So I really hope you'll go away full of hope from this evening. Two things that are really important for you to hold on to if you take nothing else from it is you can find the online exhibition on Unite Community Leeds and Wakefield's webpage. There hopefully has been hopefully you got the link from the chat, and that your local Unite Community branch would love to have you involved in the campaign, so get in touch with us. We really want to work with you as well. Going to give the last word to Jerry, who is going to talk a little bit about some of the things we're campaigning for as well as against. Jerry.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think we were talking about culture earlier and the need for a cultural movement that only criticises universal credit and hopefully secures the £20 beyond September, not just for UC claimants, but for legacy claimants as well. But also we need a culture around an alternative vision, I think, of social security. The social security system, as we've already said, has fallen into discredit. Universal discredit, following the title of the show. And it seems to me that the social security system, I mean, I could have added a lot more adjectives here, but it's cruel, it's complex, it's stigmatizing, it's discriminatory, it's inefficient, and it's increasingly tied to the idea that labor must be disciplined, particularly in the context of a low-wage economy. So there's a lot to go out there, there's a lot to criticize. However, one of the things that I found hope in is the work of something called the Commission on Social Security, which has involved people who have or are on benefits actually constructing an alternative. And they're trying to build a consensus, a culture, if you like, around an alternative. They are experts by experience, and their work has been truly inspirational. So just to give you a flavor of it, if you don't know about it, they operated on 5 principles, which was people, first of all, would have to have enough to live on, and support extra costs as a result of their circumstances. And they talk about a guaranteed decent income for people. Secondly, people, and this is a theme that's come out, people must be treated with dignity, respect, and trust. Thirdly, people should have rights and entitlements because it's a public service. Fourthly, it should be clear, it should be accessible, it should be user-friendly, and it should involve people with experience. It should be democratized, in other words, to a degree. And also, finally, people should be allowed to have access to free advice and support and a proper complaint system to go along with it. And I think that's an agenda that we could work around. I know there are other ideas like universal basic income and so on. And the Commission on Social Security will be holding events, particularly around the idea of a guaranteed decent income in the very near future. I know we've got one arranged for late April, so look out for that. Their work's truly inspirational, and it would be good to see a political strategy worked out about how to achieve that. What do the Labour Party think of it, for example? What do other people think of it? What does people in society think of it? The final part of what I wanted to say was just about campaigning, and that although we might have a vision for the future, we've got to deal with what is in the here and now. And it seems to me that the Universal Credit Campaign, which is, for the 20 quid, it would cost something like 6 billion to fund. And when you put that in the context of 37 billion that's been wasted on a completely useless test and trace system, it puts it into perspective. As far as Leeds Wakefield is concerned, we've had the benefit of working with a regional, the Unite region, with North East Yorkshire and Humberside campaign group, which met weekly in the in the build up to the budget, and indeed before that. And we had a day of action as well in December, as well as trying to be active around the budget. And I have to pay tribute to Heather Blakey, our Unite Community Coordinator, who did a brilliant job of bringing people together across the region. And without her effort, I don't think we'd have been as effective as hopefully we have been, although we weren't working alone, we're working with others as well. And so what we've got is a video which is both political and cultural, because it includes a song by somebody else I'd like to pay tribute to, and that's Barry Hewitt, one of our members, who's recently produced a CD called The Last Hope, and one of his tracks from that is featured in the video. Just a couple of more quick points before I show the video. One is we think it's important that there's a counter narrative around universal credit, but what it's actually like, how important the £20 is and so on. Not that that's enough by any manner of means. But I'd also like to emphasize the importance of contradiction. In any campaign, I always look for contradictions, and hopefully other people do as well. What's the point of leverage in a campaign? And there are contradictions, like there are some Conservatives that have supported the universal credit increase, at least on a temporary basis. Marcus Rashford is a contradiction because he's a rich millionaire footballer, but he's still interested in supporting people on questions of poverty. And I think he's on the sidelines now, running up and down the sideline with his tracksuit on and ready to take it off if Rishi Sunak doesn't deliver on the £20 for everyone come September. However, just before I show the film, I'd like to end by highlighting what is, I think, the secret weapon of all contradictions, which is Scotland. I don't know if people realise, but the government have set up a special unit, a constitution and a union unit, in order to save the union, because the absolute dreaded fear that Scotland is going to go independent, although I recognise there are some Tories that wouldn't be too bothered about that, but a government seems to be currently. And what might be little known as well is the fact there are 500,000 people on universal credit in Scotland, and I think the government alienates them at its peril. So let's see what happens. So that'd be interesting to see whether that's a driving force in the next campaign. And for Unite Community in Scotland, that might be something they might be interested in. So here's the video anyway. It's short, it just gives a flavour of what we did during the campaign. And obviously it needs to be seen not in isolation, but in combination with what lots of other people were doing in the campaign up and down the country before the budget day on the 3rd of March. Thank you.
Gonna catch that bus, gonna take that train. It's gonna be a whole day. Gonna take that job, gonna change my life. It's gonna be a whole day. We shouldn't leave anybody behind. We shouldn't leave anybody behind. There's enough for all in this whole damn world. Shouldn't leave anybody behind. Gonna enjoy life, gonna have some fun. It's gonna be a whole day. Gonna do my thing, gonna dance and sing. It's gonna be a whole day. We shouldn't leave anybody behind. We shouldn't leave anybody behind. There's enough for all in this whole damn world.
So thanks very much, everyone, for being here. I really hope you've enjoyed this evening, all the different contributions, the films and the songs and the discussion. As I said, there's lots more to say. Thank you all for your comments, your contributions, for being here, for being part of the campaign as well. As we've said, keep in touch with us. If you'd like to get in touch, as well as finding your local branch, you can direct message us on the page. We'd love to hear from you. There's so much more to say and do, and we're going to win this. We're going to win this together. So thanks for being here. Thanks very much to Ryan, who's been doing all the tech stuff behind the scenes, and to Lee, who's been doing the live captions for us tonight, and to all of the panel, and again to all of you for being here. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and don't let the bastards grind you down.